Hello and welcome to Creating a Family, talk about adoption, foster care, and kinship care. My name is Tracy Whitney, and I am the content director for Creating a Family and the host for today's conversation about residential treatment. We understand for many families that coming to the point of even considering residential treatment can be a very touchy topic. It can be very tender, can be very painful, and so we want listeners to know that we're going to be presenting this information in a gentle and caring way that helps you consider what you need to consider. And so we're going to be doing this conversation with Daniel Hochstetler. He is a camp director at Fair Play Camp in Westminster, South Carolina. And his passion is to help others find purpose, hope, and healing by processing the brokenness of our lives in ways that empower us to move forward. He's had the privilege of doing that as his main job for the past 22 and a half years at Fair Play Camp. So welcome, Daniel, to the show. We're so grateful to have you here and have your time with us today.
Yeah, it's an honor to be invited. I feel like that's a special privilege. I'm excited about it.
That's kind of you to say. So, as I alluded to at the beginning, pursuing residential treatment for an adopted child is probably one of the hardest decisions that adoptive parents can face. And so based on your experiences, how should we think about residential treatment, framing this conversation within the broader picture of supporting our kids? Like, where does it exist on the spectrum of supporting and caring for adopted children?
Yeah, so I think often, we think of residential treatment as kind of the last resort and the extreme, right? And it is that. But I think if we can move it to where it's not just looked at as the last resort, like we have nothing left to do other than this, but to look at it as a step in the journey of healing and the process of that. And often, we're going to do everything that we can before we seek residential treatment. So it is naturally kind of the last resort, if you call it that. But I think if we look at it as a helpful step in the journey of healing, and not just we're kind of throwing up our hands and saying we don't know what else to do, and so
Right.
I guess we're going to just try this. But to look at it as a step of healing.
So reframing it that way for ourselves as adoptive parents can kind of take some of the pressure off of feeling like we've done everything we can do. So let's just, throw it at the wall and see what sticks. But I think it also kind of softens it for us as adoptive parents and makes it more of a, like, let's see who else we can collaborate with.
That's correct. Yeah, because I think often we kind of put the idea of, well, if my child needs residential care, that means that somehow as an adoptive parent I've failed. Right? And that's
Yep.
totally not true. It just means that you're being courageous enough to say, what we've tried isn't working and we need some extra support. And so I think reframing it, like you said, and going, maybe this can give us the support, and maybe just a different perspective could give us the tools that we need and the confidence again, because often when parents come to camp, they've lost their confidence because they've tried so many things and nothing seems to work. And so to try to have some hope and to go, yeah, first of all, this does not mean you failed as a parent. This just means that you're being brave enough to look outside of what you've been able to give and just reinforce that.
I love that encouragement for parents, and I hope that sets the stage for this coming conversation
Yeah,
for them to feel equipped and empowered that there are other resources out there and that they're not seeking those resources from a position of failure. And I
that's
love
correct.
that. That's
Yeah.
great. So for purposes of the conversation going forward, let's define what we mean by residential treatment and how that plays out for a family.
Sure. So, in our program specifically, obviously, residential treatment is going to mean that your child is living in a residential program. He's not going to be living at home. And I'm going to say he a lot because I deal with boys, right? So our camp
Yep,
is strictly
that's fine.
boys. So I should probably say he or she, but if I do that, that's the context I'm coming from. But so residential treatment is your child's going to be placed in an out of home facility that is going to offer a variety of services.
And how is that different from other supports that families may have sought out prior to choosing this option?
Yeah, so a lot of, in-home support, a lot of therapy support, all of those are going to be trying to surround you in your home setting. A residential treatment center is then going to take that child and move him to that. So there's some separation. And sometimes that separation is good because while it seems hard and is hard, some separation of just as a child, you needed a new place to kind of restart. As a
Hmm.
parent, you need some space to heal and some space to get some different perspective. And sometimes when you separate those a little bit, you kind of go, as a parent, I think it's helpful for a parent to go, I need a reset or I need to just a different perspective. And,
Hmm.
as a parent, even if your child isn't in, outside of this conversation, sometimes as a parent, you have to go, okay, here's how I'm responding to everything. Here's where I'm at. This is not where I want to be. And so moving to maybe a healthier version. And so residential treatment can help us get to a space where we can do that.
Yeah. So in the foster system, foster parents have the benefit of respite or things like that, changing placements if it's necessary, if the child is not a good fit for the family or the family is not a good fit for the child. But obviously in adoption, that's permanence.
That's
And
correct.
so finding some sort of space or means to get that changed perspective and that reframing for themselves doesn't always come easily. Sometimes it's really hard to find as an adoptive parent. What are the kinds of needs that you see residential treatment designed to meet for adoptive kids?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned the respite part. Obviously, there's so many different types of residential programs, right? And so obviously, whatever residential placement that you as an individual family would feel like fits our needs and our child's needs is going to vary based on each family. But when I think of residential treatment, I want to look at it from the perspective of this isn't just we need a break and we don't know, we're kind of throwing our hands up, right?
Right, right.
But it's a break that is going to help us hopefully get back together to where this is not a permanent break.
Right.
And I know that there are cases where families have tried everything and they've tried all kinds of services and it's still just not working. And so sometimes that break is necessary for safety and for the health of the rest of the family. But I think again, reframing it a bit and going, this isn't just a respite, but it's a step that we're taking that's going to help us get to a healthy place. So maybe my child needs to learn this and this and this so that he or she can be healthy. At the same time, as a family, we need to do this so that both of us, all of us, can be at a healthy place again.
So it sounds like you're talking about coping skills for maybe dysregulation or communication skills for kids that really have had a hard time maybe identifying and expressing with language the things that are going on inside of them or helping them even identify what's going on inside of them.
That's
Things
right.
like that. Okay.
Yeah. And I think, for residential treatment, often, they're trained professionals. They're people that's what they do. They eat and breathe that, where they're going to be, and I think for a child, it's a different voice, right? Like
Right.
oftentimes, say here at camp, I'm not really saying that much different to that child than what that family has been saying. It's just that I don't have the history of all the hard, right? And
Yeah.
so sometimes a different voice in that child's life is really just what he needs. And sometimes because I don't have all the history, I can actually say, we can actually say the hard things to a child that a parent isn't going to be able to.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that, that's what residential treatment is designed to be.
It sounds like a very compassionate, safe landing place for the kids, which then feels compassionate and safe for the parents because their utmost concern is their child's well being.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the misunderstandings about residential treatment that make this option feel kind of bigger or more frightening than it needs to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Specific to our, to the camp is, it's a wilderness setting. And so when you think of your child going to a wilderness setting, it's often confused with like a military camp or a juvenile delinquent camp or a scared straight type program.
Right.
And it does seem like an extreme measure. Our goal, like you said, is we want to provide a safe, nurturing, family like setting where a boy can overcome the hard things that life has dealt him. And it's not about survival. It's not about seeing who can be the toughest. It's about helping each other. And so, if you were a family looking at the option of camp, that's what I would want you to know is that we want to be compassionate. We want to be caring. But if you're just looking for a residential treatment and you're going, okay, what fits us? I think you have to find something that creates that same feeling for you as a family. That I tell families that, you're not going to know everything about us, but you need to have a sense of peace that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And so whatever program you choose, rest in that you feel like you can connect with the staff. There's a sense of compassion. And also that what your child is being taught there, those principles have to be able to be transferred to your home setting. Otherwise, it's not going to work because what he's learning over here, you have to take those principles and transfer them home. And so I think that's important for staff as well to know that what we're doing here, what we're trying to teach these children, a parent has to be able to, maybe the application is slightly different, but the principle has to be a life principle. Or that child can perform in the program, but isn't going to be able to transfer the skills.
Right, right. So that sounds like to me, this is a good partnership then. You're looking for a program, whether it's a wilderness camp like yours or another residential program. You want a program that's going to be a really good partnership between home and the program, where communication between both sides is open and clear and transparent so that parents are learning at the same time that the kids are learning.
I think that's one of the biggest keys is the partnership. We talk about that a lot in our program, that we're looking to build a team. And it's really easy sometimes, I think, from the treatment side to go, okay, where's the problem? And it's easy sometimes. I think parents then can sometimes feel like, well, we're the problem. Somehow we failed, or we haven't done this, or we should be better at this and shouldn't need, this extra treatment care. But I think for a parent then to not be defensive, but I think for the program and for the parents to be transparent and to be open and to know we're on the same team. So, when we have a new family that's doing their pre-placement visit, we say our goal today is to see, can we build a team that's going to work together, right? And again, wherever you're going, that has to be foundational, that you can build a sense of trust that we're working towards the same goal.
I will add, when the children get older into the teen years, that team mentality may be a little bit harder to cultivate and kind of curry favor between, because of the HIPAA laws and things like that come into play right around 15, 16, 17. Every state kind of handles it a little bit differently. So parents should be aware of that and should feel free to question the camp or the program directors about the specifics of their child's age when they're looking at programs.
Yeah, that's right.
Listeners, I want to just take a quick break to tell you about our library of 15 free courses. Thanks to our partnership with the Jockey Being Family Foundation, we have 15 free online courses that will do all of the things that we're talking about today in this conversation with Daniel Hochstetler. It's full of tools for talking with your kids, for managing meltdowns and rages, for learning how your attachment style impacts the way you parent your child, all of the things that will help you strengthen your family if you are in the season of considering residential care or welcoming a child home from residential care. So I hope you'll go check it out at bit.ly/JBF support. That's bit.ly/JBF support. Many families, when they are trying to figure out, like, should I be considering a residential treatment program? Should I be considering, out of home placement? They kind of feel stuck. Some of it is that defensiveness that you talked about. And so we have to do the internal work as parents to recognize where that defensiveness might be coming from and how it's serving or not serving the crisis or the situation in front of us. But what are some of the signs that we should be looking for when we are wondering, should we be considering a higher level of care like residential treatment? What are some of the signs in our family dynamics?
Well, I think safety is often, safety is a big thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes things have escalated to a point where it's not safe. It's not safe for the child. It's not safe for the rest of the family. And so obviously that's a big sign. But I think also when it just feels stuck, like you said, like,
Mm,
we've been trying, but we're not moving forward anymore.
okay.
Children often feel stuck too, right? Children don't verbalize it the way us
Right.
families
Right.
do or parents do, but that child most likely feels really stuck. Like, and often, when a parent calls us here, they're gonna tell us like, these are all the things that are happening. These are the problems, and this is everything that's kind of wrong with my child. But often they can't help themselves. They go, but he's a really good kid,
Right.
but his heart is really good, right? And so if you're still at that point, then there's a lot of hope, because it's like, yeah, it's hard, and it is, it feels like we're at a really awful place,
Right.
but you still have a little flicker of hope that we can work with, where we can go, okay, we do want it to be better. And I think, yeah, the safety part, when it starts to spill over, like for some children, it's like home is kind of their safe place, and they let
Mm-hmm.
everything out at home, but they're doing okay at school, or they
Yeah.
might be doing at home, they might be doing okay at church or whatever other community parts that you have. But when it just feels like you're at an impasse, when you've tried the things like therapy, where you're going, say, once a week or every other week, you've tried the other in home support. I think the part that residential is designed for is it is a lot more intensive, right? Like we tell families, we have the time to do the things that you don't have the time for because you have to go to work, right? This is our work.
Yeah.
And so when you get to a point where it's like, we don't, I would have to quit my job, or my other children, I can't meet the needs of my other children, then I think you're at a spot where you need to go, what else is out there that we could use?
So who should be part of making this decision on a child's team?
That's a good question. Again, who are the main players that have been a part of it? Like if there's a therapist, like who has connection with the child, that knows the child really well, but also knows you as a family really well, right? Look to see who are the voices that have been a positive part of your family, because there are going to be critics who say, what? You're going to send your child to a residential program?
Right.
Um, but the folks that know you well, that know your child well, that can speak positive into it, that can help kind of reframe it for your child or even for you, because it's a roller coaster of emotions, thinking of like, okay, it is this bad. No, it's actually going better. I don't think we need this after all. But someone that can be consistent through that, kind of an outside perspective. So I always look for, if you're a person of faith, then, your pastor, your small group leader at church, guidance counselors at school, teachers, maybe there's a teacher who has a really good connection with your child and that your child has a sense of trust with. Maybe that teacher could give you some helpful insight. So look for the people that can support you, because you're going to need those same people when your
Yeah.
child comes back home. And so, again, I think it's really, really important to partner with those people,
Yeah.
because you're going to need them after care as well.
And honestly, you're going to need them while the child is away.
That's right.
It can be very lonely and isolating and scary for parents to not have everyday contact and everyday
Yes.
input or intervention in their child's lives. And so you need someone who's going to walk faithfully with you
Yes.
through the time that they're away to help you heal and reset so that you can be ready to welcome your child home.
That's 100% right. That's well said.
So, when a family does find it necessary to move forward with a placement in a residential program, how do they talk to that child about that plan? Assuming that maybe the child has been involved in the plan along the way, how do they talk with their children about that final plan and how to move that forward while keeping their relationship intact?
Yeah, that's a delicate space. But I think it's all in how it's presented. Saying things like, what we're doing isn't working very well. We all need help. And so if you can make it more than just, you're not listening and you're not doing what you need to do, but to reframe that and go, well, we all need help. Here's an opportunity for all of us to get better. And I think the other part is, if you haven't been engaged in setting healthy boundaries and limits for your child, then they're not going to take you serious when you say, we need residential help to become healthy as a family. But again, I think if the program that you're looking for, if you can frame that as an opportunity, and if you can look at it as an opportunity, not as, we failed or you're doing a terrible job as a child, but here's an opportunity for all of us to get better. And
Yeah.
so I think that is really, really important for a child. And, no child wants to leave home and go. They might say that and they might live
Right,
like they
right.
don't want to, right? But deep down, they don't want to go to a residential treatment any more than what you as a parent want to have to enroll them in a residential treatment. But I think for that child to know that you are the parent, you are responsible, again, for the safety of yourself, your children, the rest of your family, if there's other children in your family. And so that's a responsibility you have to take seriously. And so because things aren't working, we're willing to do this because we want things to work.
Yeah. So, starting the conversation by saying something like, we love you, and we notice that you're not really thriving right now.
Yes,
And we know we're not thriving right now. And we'd like to find some additional help that will help us all heal, help us all learn how to thrive. Because I think we sometimes forget that thriving is a learned skill
that's
in
right.
many, many of our kids' experiences. They don't just naturally bloom.
That's right.
And we have to figure out what supports we need to put around us as a family so that everyone in the family can thrive and bloom. And
Yes.
approaching it that way with our kids can help the conversation.
Yeah. And I think this might be a little bit of a bunny trail, but it's like, when we talk about grief or even trauma, right? We say, well, we want to help you get through this.
Hmm.
And we don't ever really get through that, right? And you know that really well. But I think for, like you said, to go, we want to thrive. And thriving means, some of these issues that these children are trying to process, they're going to be still, they're going to be triggers and things that they're going to have to process at 40 years old because it is who they are. And so I think helping your children realize that we're not trying to change you, we're trying to help you learn skills so that you can thrive, not just here today in our home, but as an adult in your own home, in your own family.
Yeah. And we all know that no matter how well we frame it and how gentle and compassionate we start the conversation, our kids are going to have a reaction to the
That's right.
conversation. What are some of the things that you commonly see as reactions from the kids before they're coming to your facility?
Yeah. I mean, again, the first reaction to most boys is, I'm not going to go there. Um, or, you can't make me do that. Or,
Right.
oh, you just want to get rid of me. Right. So you kind
I'm
of throw that.
fine. I don't
I'm
need that.
That's right, right.
Yeah.
Or fine, I'll leave, because you don't want me in the family, right? But I think if you can kind of be prepared for that, and then just stay consistent, and you're going to have the conversation more than once,
Right.
and just continue to talk and allow that child, like typically by the time as a parent that you're ready to have the conversation with your child, think about the amount of time that you have processed getting to that spot, right? You have to allow your child that same time to kind of process and go, okay, mom and dad are right. I do probably, as much as I don't want this, I am willing. So I think, it's easy to kind of go, no, this is what you're going to do, and kind of forget that as an adult, you've had months
Right.
sometimes to
Right.
kind of get yourself ready for that, and still not feel like you're ready, your child's going to feel the same way.
Yeah. And you've probably at that point given yourself not just the months to process it, but the permission to feel all the feelings,
Yes,
the
yes,
grief, the shame, the defensiveness, all those things. And our kids, part of what landed us all in this space is that our kids process all of those things imperfectly and sometimes in ways that we just cannot handle. But if we can, again, like you said, come to the conversation with the recognition that we've had lots of time to process this, but now we need to let our kids process this.
that's right.
And when our kid is, reacting with rage, summoning all of your coping skills and all of your self-regulation skills so that you can lend them your calm at some point. They won't maybe necessarily borrow your calm right away, but
That's
at
right.
some point, just continuing to work together and just de-escalating, language about fear or about shame or any of those things, de-escalating those conversations so that they can acknowledge that it's okay to feel defensive or fearful or ashamed or embarrassed or angry, any of those feelings, and just kind of being the calm. And I understand, I say that so compassionately because I
That's
understand that by
right.
the time parents get to this point where they have to say to their kids, I think we're going to be enrolling, your brother or you in a residential program. I just want to be so compassionate when I say we understand how hard
Yeah,
regulating yourself in those conversations can be.
that's right. At that point, calm sounds like a foreign language.
Exactly. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
think another point to that too would be, it may be helpful to again involve the voices that have been a part
Yes.
of your life, right? So if it's a therapist or a school teacher or a pastor or all of those people that we mentioned earlier, allow them to, it may be helpful to have some of them present when you do the first initial conversation, or it may be, if it goes into a rage where you can say, hey, let's go and talk to this person, or let's get their perspective, and again, they can be that voice of reason that your child may listen to.
Yeah. I do know many families that have chosen to have that conversation in the therapist office
Yes,
for safety reasons. Many of them have chosen it for that reason, but also for help with the language.
that's right. That's
Because when
right.
you feel your own emotions rising, because I mean, let's be honest, when a parent is at that point, it's probably still very emotional, even though they've processed. They're still very emotional about the topic.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's kind of move to now the child is in placement in a residential program like yours or the many other types that are out there. How do families stay connected with the child? I know that connection with the team happens through emails and phone calls and things like that, but how do they stay connected with the child to start to rebuild and preserve that relationship?
Yes. Well, I think first of all, do all the things that are required. Show up for every meeting. Show up for every phone call. Write letters or whatever is designed into that program.
Hmm.
Do all of those, because while it may seem really little and unimportant, because you're still working your job and you're still a parent and you're still living life, right? And it's easy to go, oh yeah, I forgot to send a card, or I forgot this, or but that matters to that child when he's away from home. And so, first of all, do all the things that are required, and then do whatever extra things that you're allowed to do and that you can do, right?
Right,
And that doesn't need to be extravagant, right?
right,
But
right,
if you're allowed to write a letter, or you're allowed to make multiple phone calls a week, if you can, you know, don't just make the one that you need to make every week, but if sometimes make the second one. And then I also think take active steps to make the changes that you talked about in the beginning with your child, right? Because, for us here at camp, that, boys are going to go home every 6 weeks for a home visit. And
okay,
so it's an extended weekend where they're going to go home to re-engage with their family, to practice the skills that they've learned. And so for a boy to go home and go, oh, mom and dad have made some changes. Maybe they've set a few different expectations. And sometimes, as a child, that you go, oh, well, now I have more rules, right? but they still can see that you're making attempts because that you're planning for them to come back home, right? I think the child has to feel like you're still engaged enough that
Hmm.
you actually want them to come back home. So I think the worst thing that you could do is to just kind of go on with life as normal, because it's not going to be normal. It's going to be different. Your child's going to be different when their child comes home. Your home needs to feel different to that child. And I think that can give your child a sense of hope that, you know what, there's purpose to me working on these things, because I can tell my parents want me to come back home, because if they didn't, they would just pretend like I wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not the only one doing the hard work here.
That's right. That's
Mom and
right.
dad are doing it too. Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And that, again, that speaks such hope to the child, but I think it also speaks to the child about the human capacity to change and
That's
grow.
correct.
And I
Yes.
think a lot of times our kids think, oh, mom and dad are kind of static. They're done. And if that's the message that our kids are getting about us, then we've got some work to do, because we always have room to grow. We always have room to heal, and we always have room to change based on the healing that we've experienced as adults. And so we need to message that to our kids.
That's right. Yeah, that's one of the best things we can model to them.
Yeah. So, what are some of the things, like real practical things you mentioned, that most programs have built into them that are going to facilitate that communication and make us be an active part of the child's team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of that is going to be like at camp, it's the home visit, right? So again, if you can, you don't have to take off of work the entire visit, but you have to be present enough that that child feels important for that weekend.
Right.
So I think that's probably the biggest key is help your child feel like even though they're in treatment, in a residential treatment, that you haven't just forgotten or just kind of gone on. But I think that's important. I think all of the other, like the visits, the calls, be engaged, be present with those.
Yeah. So you mentioned coming home for the short visits, but also then the long-term goal is for the child to reintegrate back into their home life. It's a really important goal for parents and kids to work towards, but it is not a reset button. And you had said that kind of at the beginning, that it's not just an automatic reset button. It can be, transitions we know can be really hard on kids who've experienced trauma, neglect, prenatal substance exposure. So, what are some things that we can practice in advance of our children coming home to help prepare them for the transition and kind of guide them through how to transition back home?
Well, I think, first of all, understanding that the transition home is probably as scary for the child as it is for you as a parent, right? And sometimes as a parent, that's a little hard to believe, because it has been really scary, right? Like if you've been scared of harm and your own safety, to think of your child coming back home is really scary.
Yep.
But I think preparing for that, again, communicate with your child what the expectations are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, simple things like, we're going to have bedtime at this time, or this is what your phone use is going to look like, or this is what your tablet time is going to look like, and all of those. So that way, regardless of what it was prior to your child going to residential treatment, sit down and just go, okay, here's what those expectations are going to be. Here's the things that we feel like we've learned. Here's some skills that we want to incorporate. And at camp, we talk a lot about problem solving. We talk a lot about structure and routine, and we try to plan ahead, right, and help that child know what's coming up, and help that
Mm-hmm.
child be a part of those types of things. So the more you can incorporate and practice some of those things, like if you have visits where the child can come home for a weekend or has some extended time, practice those things. Even if it feels a bit clunky sometimes, it's okay, because when you live normal everyday life like that, you want to be able to kind of go, we've practiced this, we've talked about this. At least practice might feel a little funny to your child, but at least to be able to say, hey, we've talked about this. Remember, because when that incident comes up and that child responds in anger or goes, that's stupid. Why are you making me do this? You can go, you know what? This is the stuff that we were talking about back at that visit or, in that session or whatever, so that you have some framework to come back to. I think too, believing in the change that your child has made, that's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
That blocked compassion and that, you've been hurt so many times. I think the worst thing we can do as a parent is to go, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
And so, I tell parents, never say that. You might think that, but never say that to your child, because until you can't anymore, you have to believe that you have to believe in the changes that he's making.
Some of those conversations need to start before the child leaves the program.
Yes.
That would be typically in like a family therapy session.
Yes, a lot of that would be for us, it's a lot of the home visits. But if you
Okay.
don't have a home visit where your child is coming home like that, then it would be like in the therapy sessions, like the family sessions, where again, that's a safe place to talk about those things, right? That gives you the opportunity to give voice to what you want home to be like in a setting where if that child reacts in a negative kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
you have safety and support around you. But then, if you can continue to have those conversations and even just write some of them down, set
Yeah.
goals as a family of like, in the past, here's how we dealt with these things. In the future, here's our goal. We want to, when difficult conversations come up or when there's an outburst, this is what we want to try
Right.
to do. And I
Right.
think, again, helping your child know that you understand that not everything is going to be 100. Your child isn't coming home perfect, right? And so
Right.
for your
Right.
right, so I think just
Nor are they
acknowledging
coming home to perfect parents.
that's right. So I think acknowledging the fact that we're all going to make some mistakes, just like we did 3 months ago or 6 months ago, however long that your child has been away. We're going to make some of those same mistakes. Some of those same tendencies and habits are still going to be there. We just have different tools now.
Okay.
We have different skills. And so this is what we want to set as a new normal. So let's be patient with each other. You're going to have to be patient with me as dad, and I want to be really patient with you. But we're not going to allow things to go back to an unsafe. I think also kind of setting the boundaries of saying, this is what was not working prior to placement.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to compromise that. Like, we're not going to compromise our safety. We're not going to compromise these, but these are the things that are kind of the non-negotiables.
Okay.
Again, setting those in a way that isn't just like, well, if I break those, then I'm going to get sent away, correct?
Right.
But setting them as like, these are the foundational core things of our family that you need to live by. But then, yeah, acknowledge the fact that we all are going to have to work hard to create a new normal.
Right. That's great. So when parents are looking for programs, I'm hearing you say, number one, look for a program that defines what communication between home and family is going to be like.
Yes.
Look for a program that can define what the transition process before discharge is going to be like. And look for a program that will answer those questions and support you at both the entry and the exit of the program.
That's right. Yes. And I think a program that you can have a sense of trust with,
Yep.
that you feel peace about. I think support and partnership are really good words with that. Like a program that's going to support your vision for your family.
Right.
And that what your child is going to be focusing on and learning to change, that you can incorporate that back into your home.
Right. So as we're getting ready to bring our child home after navigating the time that they're away, what are some of the supports that we parents can be putting in place to welcome that child home and support us while we're welcoming them home?
Well, I would go back again to who's your team at home? Who's your team in your community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's possible or practical with the program that you're working with. Like for us, as we get closer to graduation from camp, on a home visit, we would encourage that family to take your son and set up a meeting at the school that he's going to go back to, right? That way, prior to him coming home for good, he's had a chance to go walk the halls of the school, to meet the school teachers, the guidance counselors, those kinds of people. If it's a therapist that you've been using prior to treatment, set up a time where you can go visit with that therapist. Or, if it's not a physical one, maybe you can do a video meeting with them. But start setting up the pieces that you're going to need for support. And then also look for, like, again, for us, we're a wilderness program, right? So we're doing lots of outdoor educational things. We're doing experiential learning. So organizations like Boy Scouts or Trail Life, some of those kinds of things, like what are positive ways for that child to use the things that he's learned, not just the therapy parts, but the actual skills maybe that he's learned in treatment, that he has a way to use them back home. That way he doesn't just go, well, that was kind of cool, but I'm never going to,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So if you can find some groups like that kind of tie back in with the experience that your child has had, I think that can be really helpful.
And not to forget what new passions or interests they may have picked up in different programs offered at residential care, because some kids coming to your program may have never had any interest in outdoor life at all.
That's right.
And so they come home with this new passion for bugs or trees or whatever. But there's other programs offered at other residential programs meant to help kids find coping skills and de-stressing skills through art and music and things like that. So they may come home with some new interests, and then it's on us as the parents to say, hey, what else did you learn? What else can we get involved in? And then consider doing it with them.
That's right. You need to suddenly have a passion for art or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Don't just drop them off at Cub Scouts. Consider going with them to Cub Scouts.
That's right.
Take an art class together or something like that.
Yes.
When the child comes home, there's a lot of newness underneath all that familiarity. There's still some newness and change and differences. What are some simple ways that we can work as parents to rebuild a connection without overwhelming the child with all of the new and different? Because we've already talked about boundaries. We've already talked about routines and some of the things that we need to have in place when the child comes home. But that connection between us really needs to kind of come to the forefront.
Yeah, that's an excellent thought process. So if you kind of, for a lot of our families that we're talking about, they're going to be adoptive families, right? And so you think about the attachment that you first built when you first adopted your child. It's not a new attachment, but in some sense it is a new attachment, and you need to treat it that way, right? So don't plan a trip to Disneyland. Don't plan a big kind of welcome home kind of party. You can have, you can do small celebrations, and you can, have your support people, your extended family, and some of that. But your child's also going to be a little self-conscious sometimes coming back home, right? And so if you do this really huge neighborhood party, you might be putting your child in a situation where he or she's going, I feel really kind of self-conscious about myself. And it probably isn't it might feel good to you, but it won't feel good to them. But plan some fun things. Do some fun things that you can do together that are simple. Maybe the whole family can go do it. Do some one-on-one things. But I think the biggest thing is just to be intentional. Mm-hmm. I think also, like, acknowledging with your child that we're going to try some things and we may change some things, right? Like, we may start out like this for this first week, but let's talk about it at the end of the week. And if it's not working, we're going to adjust it a little bit.
Yeah.
That way that child's kind of prepared for that and knows that the same way that you're trying to figure it out, we're trying to figure it out too.
Yeah. Yeah. So predictability, routine, structure,
Yes.
consistency, intentionality, face-to-face activities if your child is comfortable with face-to-face, side by side if they're kind of getting to those teen years, side by side activities are good. Anything that will put you guys in proximity with each other, being present with each other. It doesn't have to be a big agenda. It can just be presence together, sitting on the
That's right.
couch together, watching your favorite old movie. Things that aren't going to be triggering, but are maybe going to be comforting instead.
That's right. And I
Yeah.
think too, like if you kind of think through what the routines were at the facility that they were at or the program that they were in, if you can incorporate some of those same
Yeah.
familiar times, it might be that breakfast was always at a certain time or bedtime, or maybe they had a little routine that they did before
Yeah.
going to bed. If you can incorporate parts of those or
Right.
similar experiences,
Yeah.
that can kind of ease some of that transition.
Yeah. And it's a good safety net for parents as
That's
well.
correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
One more interruption just to let you know that if you are raising a child with challenging behaviors, or you're struggling to understand what is driving those behaviors, or you're just looking for some new resources to help you handle and manage and improve your child's behaviors, we have a parenting workshop for families whose children have been impacted by prenatal substance exposure to drugs and alcohol. We want to say thank you to our very generous partners who allow us to offer it this year for free. It's a 3-session workshop that, again, is free of charge through the rest of 2026. You can learn more about it at bit.ly/prenatal-exposure-training. You can also stay up to date on all of the other trainings and new content that we're bringing you for managing challenging behaviors or understanding prenatal substance exposure and so on when you sign up for our free newsletter at creatingafamily.org/newsletter. You can pick the free downloadable guide that serves your family best when you go to subscribe to that at that link, and it'll help you strengthen your parenting skills, better understand your child, and give you practical tools to implement at home also. Hope you take advantage of either or both of those links, and for now, we'll get back to the interview. Thanks so much. So when those old behaviors resurface, and they often do, especially in the early transition time, how do we respond?
Well, like I said earlier, our first response typically is like, "Oh no, we've wasted all this time. We thought this was going to change everything."
Right, right,
Um, Believe in the skills that you've learned. Believe in the changes that your child has made. Believe in the relationships that you've built, right? And sometimes that means that you have to. I think some of the follow up care can be maintain as is appropriate. Obviously, maintain the relationships that you and your child built, say, with the staff at the
right.
residential facility, right? Like we will often, sometimes when that first incident comes up, we'll invite them to come back out to camp and just sit back in, the office here where they're familiar, where they have had some difficult conversations, and just go, okay, take a deep breath. You're going to be okay, right?
Yep.
I think for a parent too, like have some safe places that you can just, maybe they call you and say, I just have to vent, right? Because all of those fears and emotions and all that stuff that you thought maybe you had processed and worked through,
Right.
all of a sudden is right there again. And you just need
Yeah.
to barf at somebody other than your
Yep.
child.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So, what does progress actually look like in real life for kids who've gone to residential treatment and are coming home?
Yes.
What should we expect progress to look like?
Well, I think progress should be that the child is aware of what the triggers are, what the tripping points are,
Yeah. Yep.
the things that trip them up, and even just their kind of personality tendencies. But then along with that, have skills that they can overcome those with, right? And I think going back to some of like, we're not just trying to get through this trauma or fix the trauma, but understand that those trigger points may trigger you at 20 and 30 and 35 or when you have your first child or all of that. So I think progress needs to look like an awareness, a willingness to work on it, but knowing that you've developed some bad habits too, right? And here's some ways that we have overcome those bad habits and the new tools that we have so that we can all remind ourselves and each other that, hey, wait a minute, take a deep breath. You've learned something different. We're not going to respond that way anymore. We're not going to just react this way anymore. We're going to talk about it, or we're going to do this. I think that to me is what progress looks like. And I think when we have those, then you have confidence,
Yeah.
right? Because as a family, you want to be confident that I can draw a line with my child or I can engage with my child and we can get through it, right? Your child needs to have confidence that I might blow up, but I have the skills to know how to come back to mom and say, hey, mom, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. And to just practice some of those things.
And then I think another marker of progress would be being able to trust each other,
Yes,
that you're both working on it and you're both
that's correct.
learning. Yeah.
Yes. And we tell children, for boys that have, say, developed bad habits of just physical aggression or, abusive language or harm, threats and those types of things, you may still get angry, but you have to be safe.
Yeah.
And so I think for that child to kind of say, here's my bottom line. Like I might get really mad, but I will never threaten my mother again.
Right. Right. So we know that the experience of residential care affects everyone in the
That's
home.
right.
How can parents and caregivers support the siblings who are also living in the home and may have been impacted by some of the things that have happened?
Well, I think again, your other children, while they may not be the ones acting out,
Mm-hmm.
they may need some therapy, right? You may need to do therapy as a whole
Yep.
family. But I think acknowledging the feelings of your other children, the fears of your
Yeah.
other children, it's okay for your other children to go, I haven't really missed my brother that much, or I haven't really missed my sister that much,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
it has been traumatic for them. That doesn't mean they don't love them. That doesn't mean that they don't want them to return home. But I think it's a way of them saying, this has been really hard, right? And I think, if you're at a spot where you have a child that's needing to go to residential treatment, you know that you have put probably the majority of your energy into that child for a bit, right? So while your child is in residential treatment, put that energy into some of your other children because they probably haven't gotten some of the energy that they need. And so it's also a way to kind of to rebalance some of that or
Yep.
to recalibrate some of that. And that's okay. It's okay. It's still okay for you as a family to go on a vacation while your other child is in residential,
Yeah.
because that might be what your other children need. And I think it's okay to speak to that with the child in treatment, to say, you're going to have some fun experiences there that as a family we're not going to be a part of, but we're also not going to feel guilty. We've had this planned. We're going to do this, because that's a way of breathing life back into your other siblings.
Yeah, that's so good. So therapy for the other kids, therapy as a family while the child is away, one-on-one time, memory making time, fun, just open, clear space to communicate whatever's going on inside of them to help them recalibrate and reset also.
Yeah. Because oftentimes the focus has been so much on what's hard
Yeah.
that if you
Yep.
can create some fun shared experiences, you can kind of move forward.
Yep. And that sounds like a big task because parents are often exhausted by
That's
this
right.
point,
Yes.
mentally, spiritually, emotionally, just physically exhausted. So while the child is away during treatment, what are some things parents can be doing for themselves?
Well, sometimes it's simple, just like self-care. Like maybe you used to work out every morning, or you used to love to read or go on a walk or something like that,
Yep.
but you haven't been able to because you've put all of that energy into keeping your child safe and your family safe.
Yeah.
It's okay to someone told me one time that we need to be fierce about our own healing.
I
And
love that.
yes. And sometimes as a parent, because we love our children so much, we're so fierce about their healing
Yeah.
that we forget to be fierce about our own healing.
Yeah.
And obviously you can take that so far where you're like, well, I got to do this because, I got to take care of me. But there is a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
And so give yourself permission to just take a nap or catch up on some of those things, and then do some fun things that you just haven't been able to do. Do some fun things with your spouse that you haven't been able to do. Because the same thing that we just said about our other children is also true for ourselves and for our spouses.
Yep. Yep. Self-care is one of my soapboxes.
Yes. Yes.
And, I define self-care so differently than maybe like pop culture defines it. Like to me, meal planning and, a grocery service or, a house cleaning service, if you can afford it, things like that. Those are things that can be self-care. Whatever nourishes me to the point that I feel like I can then be fueled to do the hard work of parenting is to me self-care. So
that is
I love
really,
that you brought
really
it up
good.
that way.
Yes, I love the way because self-care isn't always just going to the beach.
Right.
Right. Or going on this extravagant vacation. It might just be that I'm going to hire someone to clean my house today. Right. You said it well. That's excellent.
I mean, who doesn't love a spa day? But that's not always the most nourishing.
That's right. That's right.
Self-care.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up here, if a parent is listening today and feels like they're kind of nearing this decision point, yes, we probably need to consider residential care. What's one step that you think they can take today that will help them feel more grounded or prepared for what's coming?
Well, I think just understanding that asking for help and making a decision that looks extreme, that takes courage.
Yeah.
And I think do what you feel the most peace about that fits your family the best. And then be prepared for criticism, right? There's going to be people that say, you're doing that?
Yeah.
Why, I've never seen your child act like that. But I think trust your heart, trust your intentions, and trust that you love your child. And I think, again, like we said in the beginning, making a decision for residential treatment does not mean that you've failed as a parent. It means that you're brave enough and courageous enough to be willing to say what other resources are out there and who can help us get to where we want to be as a family. So I think just believing in that and believing in the fact that you're doing what you feel, what you and your family, you and your spouse, what you feel like is the best and what's needed the most. And while that looks hard and extreme, trust yourself and do it.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Hochstetler, thank you for your very compassionate and gentle way of approaching the topic and for explaining what parents can expect and what parents should consider. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your service to all of the boys who've come through Fair Play Camp. And we wish you well in many years ahead of continuing to change lives.
Yes, and likewise to you. Thank you for all the resources you provide for families and all the ways that you support them. And again, it was an honor to be invited.
Oh, thank you so much.